Good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you so much for joining us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinox Television. Tonight, the French President Emmanuel Macron, that began his African tour in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, that was today, says that solutions to the migrant crisis rocking the African continent should be global within the continent and in the world at large. Also in this newscast, members of the Douala chapter of SINES resumed work today in the economic capital Douala, but vowed to continue with their protest if their various reivindications are not addressed. Plus, we take you to the northwest region of the country, where 3 persons are currently receiving treatment in hospital after men of the underworld attacked a credit union. Those are headlines. Stay with us for the details. Good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you so much for joining us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinox Television. Let's begin right away. News out of the country. The French President Emmanuel Macron, that has continued what outlined an approach to relations with Africa as he began a regional trip starting with Burkina Faso. He was in Ouagadougou in the country today, where he addressed hundreds of students at the university, at the amphitheater in the university in Ouagadougou. He said that he was from a generation that could not tell Africans what to do. He also said that he would do or declassify secret French files on the former colony's assassinated leader, that is Thomas Sankara. Emmanuel Macron is on a 3-day trip in West Africa, taking in Burkina Faso, which began in Burkina Faso, that was today. Tomorrow is expected to be in Ivory Coast, and after he would be in Ghana. And it should be noted that hundreds of students were asking questions from the French President Emmanuel Macron as he was at the amphitheater of the university in Ouagadougou. That was today. He equally talked about the France CFA zone, and called on African leaders to withdraw if they will, if that is their desire. The French President Emmanuel Macron said that he is part of the new generation that would no longer dictate to African leaders, and equally said that he is willing to work especially with the younger generation. That was the day 1 of his African tour in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso. Today, it's going to continue tomorrow in Ivory Coast and thereafter in Ghana. Now we continue with the news out of the country. Uhuru Kenyatta has been sworn in for a 2nd term in office as president of Kenya. He was inaugurated today amidst protests by opposition supporters who were not part of the inauguration ceremony in the country's capital. Today, Babla Jonathan has the details in the following report.
Scenes of chaos outside the Kasarani Stadium in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, almost marked the swearing-in ceremony of President Uhuru Kenyatta. People without seats tried to rush into the stadium but were driven back by police with tear gas. Big screens had been promised so that tens of thousands of people could watch the ceremony from outside the stadium, but were not provided. At least 1 person was killed when police clashed with opposition supporters. The ceremony was boycotted by the opposition, and opposition leader Raila Odinga has announced plans to be sworn in himself as president next month. Speaking after his inauguration, President Uhuru Kenyatta vowed to overcome Kenya's divisions. President Kenyatta said he will try to incorporate some ideas of the opposition in an inclusive spirit. Embarking on his 2nd and last term in office, he promised to act as the custodian of the dreams of all Kenyans. President Kenyatta also pledged to devote his time and energy to build bridges to unite and bring prosperity to all Kenyans.
We come back to the country to get to Lebialem, that is a division in the southwest region of Cameroon. It's a veritable nightmare, especially to car owners. Commuters can only pass Frunchang, west region of the country, to get to that part of the southwest region of Cameroon. It is as a result of the extreme bad state of that route. Details with Davison Maimo.
To travel to Lebialem division in the southwest region, one must pass Frunchang in the west region, given that it is the only road that is manageable. The main road from Bakibe passing through Tintu in Manu division, the southwest region, Report says it is unbearable as heavy-duty trucks transporting timber have almost destroyed the road.
I plead for the government. When you don't reach Cham, road don't finish. For this time, we go for plenty and we get the best milk. We get fine shop for inside 10 years. So no go road for take a move and supply from yourself.
Even during the dry season, it takes drivers with some guts to ply the Changfontein stretch of road, as it is jagged, rugged, and even dusty, providing poor visibility to the driver. During the rainy season, the people of Libialem are naturally cut off from the rest of the country, as explained by the Fund of Fontaine.
The head of state knows our problem already, because you and I know that it's often said when a road passes, development will follow. So when our road passes, development will follow.
Even though the street in Libialem are presently being tarred, an engineer who preferred to be anonymous say it is surface dressing and not full tarred, thus would not last longer as expected. With rumor being filtered that the Chinese will soon commence work on the Bakibe Timto Libialem Chang stretch of road, as some Chinese have been spotted carrying visibility studies.
We've been seeing Chinese on the road, and we are hopeful that sooner or later we are going to have our problem will be solved.
The hope of the Libialem man has been rekindled, if and only if it is not another political scam.
The heavy deployment of security forces in the town of Bamenda since the Anglophone crisis escalated is no news to Cameroonians. But that seems not to be enough to curb the rising rate of insecurity in that part of the northwest region of Cameroon. Many were taken by surprise this afternoon after a group of bandits stormed a microfinance institution, leaving 3 persons seriously injured. Details in the following report. An unusual atmosphere Tuesday in Food Market situated in the heart of the city of Bamenda. The area surrounded by security forces with onlookers gathered in groups, telling the story that left many in shock. As traders went about their usual hustling and bustling, a gang of bandits stormed the Mbatu Cooperative Credit Union few minutes after midday and took all the occupants hostage. As this victim explains, the bandits initially posed as customers before executing their plan.
Immediately he moved a gun and pointed at me. That was when they asked that they started, and then they used the one piece and hit flat here. When the doctor was explaining, they hit my skull. So I lost a lot of blood.
He and 2 other persons who were severely injured and are receiving treatment at the Bamenda Regional Hospital. The police, gendarmerie officials and surrounding residents arrived at the scene after the bandits had already escaped.
Unfortunately, one come now, we reach now, they say they put it into the app, they don't run. So,
it remains unknown how much was lost, as management of the credit union refused to comment on the matter. Critics have not ceased to question why the city of Bamenda, with heavy deployment of security forces, can witness such an incident in broad daylight. This is the second time in 1 week that a credit union is being attacked in the day in Bamenda Northwest region of Cameroon. Activities in the University of Douala, which were halted for 1 week after members of the Douala chapter of SINES went on strike, resumed this Tuesday in the university campus. The grumbling lecturers only returned to work after hours of consultation with the rector of the University of Douala. They have vowed to continue with their protest if their demands are not met. Our reporter Catherine Connie tells us more in the following report.
The poor working conditions, absence of toilet in some buildings at the University of Douala, lack of portable water, the general insalubrious nature of the institution are the grievances raised by lecturers during a meeting with the Vice-Chancellor and some administrative authorities. These problems, according to the lecturers, are reasons for their strike action. which needs to be addressed as a matter of urgency.
Nous avons discuté en toute sincérité dans un vase.
According to the lecturer, after putting forth several problems, the issue of toilet and water will be solved.
La grève est terminée.
He said the strike is over. The unfulfilled promises by the administrative authorities to offer offices to its lecturers was also a point raised during the meeting. Responding to the numerous problems of the lecturers, the Vice-Chancellor has promised concrete solutions to the concerns raised in the meeting.
Solutions are underway to cope with difficulties the university is now dealing with. So don't worry, my colleagues, you have been discussing and we have tackled every problem with the necessary will to succeed. That's why in the next days, as from tomorrow, some of problems raised will find the beginning of solution.
It should be noted that the lecturers had 1 week sit-in strike in which they denounced poor working conditions. They equally interrupted classes. The strike action was initiated by the National Union of Teachers of Higher Education, SNES.
Dr. Nalova Lyonga has been commissioned as board chair of the Douala General Hospital. That was during a ceremony that was today chaired by the Public Health Minister, Andre Mamafuda, who told her to foster cordial relationship amongst hospital staff and equally improve healthcare services in the said institution. We obviously will be coming back to that before the end of this newscast. Before we come back to that, we are going to be talking sports. Football New Stars of Douala that has intensified training ahead of the announcement of the date for the Cameroon Cup. The team that was in Yaoundé over the weekend are back to the economic capital Douala for the finals. As Manjikan Gabriel tells us in the following report.
New Stars of Douala are back in the economic capital to continue fine-tuning their strategies after the cup finals was cancelled by the presidency of the Republic over the weekend. At the Douala Reunification Stadium, where the blue and whites are having the training sessions, all of the players are serene as they continue to wait for the date of the Cup of Cameroon finals to be announced.
Everybody is very concentrated, prepared for the match. No matter the day that the final will be given, we are ready to play the match. We are going to give the best of us. Yes, amongst us, we keep on speaking and encouraging each other not to put the head down, because we know this final, any moment it can be given. So each time the senior one are giving us advice to be concentrated, not to go out of the concentration, because this match is a very important match. We must win this match no matter what. Last week we were waiting for the final to be played on the 26th. Unfortunately, it was postponed. So we are not relying on it, because if it has not been played on the 26th, any moment from now it can be played.
The team's head coach has this advice to his players.
We continue our preparation normally, and I think that we wait to see how normal day to play final cup. We continue to prepare to see how to ameliorate our training session, our difficulties, tactically work, and so on, for see how to have a better performance for the final days. They are waiting the final with more concentration. They are waiting the final with more pleasure. I think that God will be with us.
If New Stars are back in the littoral region, their opponents, UMS of Loum, are still camping in Yaoundé. The team is training at the military stadium, and according to their head coach, Gibeten Jemnang, they will continue training until the date for the cup finals is made public. Both teams, should be recalled, will be appearing at the cup finals for the second time each, with a title for UMS of Loum, while New Stars are still crawling towards their first cup trophy in the country.
We continue with the sports. 2 Cameroonian players are still on the course for the African Best Player Awards for the year 2017 after a second list was made public by the Confederation of African Football. That was yesterday, Monday. In the men's category, we have Vincent Abubakar that has been retained, and Abudi Ongene is being shortlisted, or she features in the women's category. Smart Njikangebre once again tells us more in this report.
Vincent Abubakar is the only Cameroonian left in the race for the African Best Player of the Year award. The FC Porto player, who has been in glittering form since the start of the season, was amongst those retained on the 10-man shortlist of the African Top Player Award. Abu will have rivalries from the likes of Mohamed Salah of Egypt and Liverpool FC, who is also in his top moment with his club, alongside Uganda's Denis Oyongo, voted last year's best player in the continent, Sadio Mane of Senegal, Yassine Brahimi of Algeria, and Victor Moses of Nigeria. Surprisingly, in the shortlist released by CAF, last year's winner, Algeria striker Riyad Mahrez, was dropped out. It should be noted that the likes of Christian Basogok and Fabrice Ondwa were also left out in the 10-man shortlist. In the women's category, out of the 5 Cameroonians that were nominated in the first list, just one, Abudi Gabriel Ongene, was retained in the shortlist of 6. The FC Rosianka striker will have a major challenge in grabbing the award, as she will have to tussle with Dalian and Nigerian wonder girl Asisat Oshola. Another shortlist is expected in the days ahead before the award night scheduled for Ghana in January 2018.
And that report brings us to the end of this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinox Television. We obviously would be coming back to the report that had to do with the installation ceremony of the new board chair of the General Hospital here in the country's economic capital, Douala. In our subsequent newscast, we are having indications that the report is ready. The installation ceremony that was presided over by the Public Health Minister, Andre Mama Foda, who told the new board chair of the General Hospital in the country's economic capital, Douala, to foster cordial relationship amongst the hospital staff and equally improve healthcare services. It should be noted that the post has been vacant since 6 years, or for 6 years now, since the death of the former board chair. We will be coming back to that in our subsequent newscast. That brings us to the end of this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinox Television. We thank you so much for joining us. Wishing you a blessed day in the company of our programs. Until we meet again, goodbye.